President Barack Obama announces he plans to remove Cuba from the U.S. list of state sponsors of terrorism. It is yet another step in his effort to improve relations with the island nation after more than 50 years of diplomatic isolation. In a formal notice to Congress. Hey, he tells Congress things? Who knew? Mr. Obama said a State Department review determined that Cuba met the requirements for removal. I am joined by the Fresh Outlook think tank. Mr. International himself, Albert Goldson, CEO of Indo-Brazilian Associates. Jackie Guzda, media analyst from Western Connecticut University. Jeanette Hoffman, a GOP strategist, joining us live via Skype. Eric Zolov, a modern Latin America expert from Stony Brook University. And joining us from the capital of our nation, Stephen Propst, a partner at a global law firm, Hogan and Lovells. And Stephen, I'll start with you since we just saw your handsome face there. Tell us about the move to normalize relations with Cuba and to remove it from the terrorism list or state sponsors of terrorism. Good idea?
Sure. So the state sponsor of terrorism designation is really just a diplomatic tool. You can think of it as a version of diplomatic name calling in some respects, but it does also carry very significant legal implications. But in the case of Cuba in particular, the rescission is not particularly significant from the perspective of the embargo or trade, because there are so many additional layers of statutory restrictions imposed by Congress. So this is, at this stage, largely significant from a diplomatic perspective and from the perspective of restoring diplomatic relations and embassies between the two countries.
Okay, let's turn now to Albert Goldson. Jeb Bush says that Barack Obama has improved relations with countries around the world, namely Iran and Cuba. That is where he has made his strides. Talk to me about Cuba. What do you make of his efforts? Good idea?
I think it's an excellent idea. It's about time that consideration should be as far as lifting the embargo is concerned, and it opens it up actually for business, believe it or not. The financial services as well as agriculture is very interested in developing in Cuba, to increase productivity there, as well as the medical aspect. Cuba has the largest number of patients, doctors to patients in the world. It's 155 to 1 compared to the United States, which is 400 to 1. So all they lack is 21st century medical equipment and pharmaceuticals. So it's not only for the Cuban people, but also for actually our healthcare here in the U.S. for Americans who can't afford healthcare to go there for medical reasons.
Okay, but Jackie, they give you a shot of whiskey and a bullet to bite on when they do the surgeries, so
that
they
is
have
why.
A good doctor-patient ratio, but I ain't going there for my major surgery.
Why not? I'll tell you, Cuba is an extremely educated country. I believe the literacy rate there is 99%.
But Albert just said they lack the technology.
So now that the embargo is lifted, we can get medical supplies in, plus, as you said, increase business in Cuba. I mean, it's a beautiful island in the Caribbean. For years, I've always dreamt of having a Hilton there, all those corporations.
I want to go to Sandals, Cuba right now.
Maybe not awesome. Sandals, but, right? It's a beautiful country.
Okay.
And it deserves to come into this
It is a beautiful
century.
country, wonderful people, nobody disputes that.
Ricky Ricardo.
And Ricky Ricardo's from there.
That's right.
What do you say?
Well, so it will take an act of Congress to lift the embargo on
Oh
Cuba.
no, on an executive order.
Well, yeah, we know this president loves
fiat.
We know he loves his executive orders, but really it's going to take Congress to lift the embargo. And Republicans in Congress are saying, some of them are saying, there is no way that we're going to embolden the Castro regime that has a terrible history on human rights, that aids and abets places like North Korea, and that harbors fugitives. No way, not on our watch. However, on the other side of it, from the Republican side, you have the Chamber of Commerce, you have corporate America, you have the business community saying, yes, let's go to Cuba. There's no reason why we shouldn't. So you have free enterprise on one side saying yes, and then you have a lot of Republicans who are very strong on foreign policy saying this is a terrible idea.
Okay, let's pick up with your thought with Eric Zolov. Eric, I feel that if you empower someone financially, that you'll actually make a friend much more easily and turn around an enemy much more easily than to continue to threaten them. What say you, sir?
Empower them financially in what regard? You're saying
by expanding business opportunities there, becoming a trade partner, opening up tourism, opening up technological investment, and so forth.
Sure, absolutely. I mean, I think that the key issue here is that, and I have to chuckle listening to some of the commentary before about, opening the Hiltons. I can't wait for the Hilton, and Cuba's this beautiful island. Cuba, the legacy of the Castro regime in Cuba will be a very strong state nationalism, a state-sponsored economic development, a strong state-directed infrastructure, the goals that the Cuban Revolution sought to achieve, and what other countries in Latin America have all aspired to over the decades. So it's true that Cuba needs a lot. They need financial investment. They need trading partners, or at least trading partners with the United States. Obviously, they have European and Latin American and Canadian trading partners. So they want that, but don't think that they are going to, throw out the baby with the bathwater. They worked hard to achieve a sense of strong national identity. And despite the divisions, and they will seek to hold on to that identity.
Do you agree with that, Albert, that they're going to be a staunch supporter of nationalism in the country despite our efforts to Americanize it?
Absolutely. That will continue as long as the Castros are in power or as long as they are alive. Once they pass, the situation will change. What's happened over the last several decades has been something quite personal as far as the U.S. government, whatever administration has been in power, and Castro. In other words, Cuba is Castro, Castro is Cuba. Mr. Canel, he's a 53-year-old politician in Cuba. He is set to assume power in 2018. There's a different generation of Cuban leaders who are ready to take command once the Castros are gone. That doesn't mean that Cuba is just going to roll over and become a free enterprise, which everyone is hoping they will. But certainly the progress in terms of the lifting of sanctions, the opening up of economic and even political opportunities will be much easier once the Castros are out of the picture.
Let's turn to Stephen Propst joining us from D.C. Stephen, what do you think the reaction is from the people who escaped Cuba over the last few decades? They left family and friends behind. They've been separated from loved ones for decades in some cases. They were staunch opponents of the Castro regime, and now everything's turning around for them. I know it's not a monolithic group, but do you feel there's support on the part of Cuban refugees and other people who came here seeking freedom?
I do. I think that there's really been a turn in the opinion among the Cuban Americans. I've been to Miami and spoken with some of the key members of the community down there. There certainly are still those who oppose this and feel strongly that the sanctions should remain in place until the Castros are gone. But I think particularly the younger generation and the Cuban Americans who came here and have reestablish themselves and their businesses here recognize that there's not much for them to be gained by keeping these sanctions in place, and they're ready to move forward.
All right, let's turn to Eric Zolov for another perspective. Eric, do you think that Cuba poses a threat to the United States 50 years after the Cuban Missile Crisis? Is Barack Obama, in your opinion, as a historian, as an expert, doing the right thing?
Yeah, no, there's no question Cuba poses a threat. And arguably, Cuba was an irritant. And there were moments, Cuban Missile Crisis being notorious, that Cuba became a pawn in a larger Cold War geopolitical game. That's long over. Not since the 1970s, in my estimation, has Cuba even remotely supported state-sponsored terrorism. Cuba granted political asylum to people with whom the United States and others felt viewed criminally and otherwise did not deserve political asylum, but that is a separate matter. Cuba has not threatened the United States, and nor, I would argue, threatened U.S. allies. There's the Central American Wars. That is a topic unto its own, unto itself. I think Barack Obama was incredibly astute here politically. He backed the Republicans into the corner. The Republicans the candidates are going to most likely come out against this because it seems to be the politically correct thing for them to do. But the Latino vote, the non-Cuban Latino vote, if anything, is pro-Cuban, pro-diplomatic relations with Cuba. And the Cuban demographics have shifted tremendously. We now have, second, third generation, and if anything, they simply want closer ties. So I think Obama was smart. Cuba plays no threat to U.S., and we're already seeing the huge political windfall that the United States is getting in Latin America because of this decision to initiate diplomatic relations. But okay. Obama's hands are tied. I mean, it's really, it is Congress. He's he's chipping away at the edges, but so far we're talking in the realm of symbolism.
Eric Zolov, thank you very much for your time. And let me just get a quick Republican response from Jeanette here. Is this going to blow up as a 2016 political issue if the Republicans back President Obama in a corner and say, hey, we're not going to normalize relations as you'd like to?
I think foreign policy is definitely going to be one of the top issues. And frankly, President Obama's failure to be strong and to be a strong leader in foreign policy, I think you're going to see a lot of Republicans come out strongly against that and against normalizing relations with Cuba and with Iran and with countries that do pose a threat.
Okay, and I also want to thank Stephen Propst for joining us as well, a partner at Hogan Lovells Law Firm. Thank you for your thoughts, sir. The rest of the Ebru think tank will be back. Still to come on Fresh Outlook. It's the most taxing time of the year. And don't worry, I'm not going to sing after this.